Welcome. Thanks for your indulgence for my late arrival, but I was at another engagement at the Hibiscus. We're launching our committee for coordination of national statistics. And I must say it was off to a good start, good attendance, and people seem to be excited to move from this silo effect and move with the mandate that we are not a competition in government, but indeed we are a strong coalition. Having said that, let me congratulate the Rotary Club of Grand Cayman for sponsoring the essay contest that allows the students to gain a much better understanding of the workings of our government, and indeed to have the interest to even want to come to a press briefing. My Deputy Premier will obviously do a special welcome to them, being a Minister of Education as well, but suffice to say that we're impressed. I catch on the side of my eye, I think one who's perhaps on the back, welcome. With the young people and the brightness and the awareness, because the next government, the next premier could be sitting right here amongst you today. That's just the way that education is a great equalizer and opens many, many doors of opportunities. Like also to thank Ms. LeCloyd and Ms. Smith, two veterans within the service themselves and parents in their own right, for continuing even beyond that wonderful age of maturity where you leave the service and go on to do bigger and better things. The government thanks you and appreciate for all of your effort. I want also to just say that the government on a whole sent condolences to Lady Margaret Thatcher, otherwise known as the Iron Lady of the British Commonwealth, United Kingdom, specifically Sweden. I was invited to attend the funeral. I chose not to do so. I felt we were too close to an election, and I had a lot of irons in the fire on a domestic front that we needed to take care. But nonetheless, I asked Lord Cartha to attend the register at Downing Street to enter condolences on behalf of the Cayman Islands government. And I also, as you would have heard in the local media, expressly sent a condolence message, which were well received according to the response that I got back from Lord Cartha. I also want at this time to echo on behalf of my entire government heartfelt prayers for the victims in Boston, and again we saw yesterday in Texas. We live, unfortunately, in that type of world, and as we are an emerging global village, when we can appreciate and feel the hurt of our brothers and sisters, irrespective from what part of the globe we come from, we're well on the way to building a better nation. And as the nation building is indeed in my ministry and in the Office of Premier, it's not just about scholarships and helping churches, but indeed it's the church that lays the foundation for treating the neighbor in a good way. And in fact, I want to dovetail into those sentiments, into my next expressions I wish to pursue just now, and that we're all familiar with the Good Samaritan story. And I'm not here to preach this morning, but I'm going to say it nonetheless because we are a Christian nation. There were a number who passed on the road and saw the injured person there, and those who were expected to stop and see what happened to the injured person didn't stop. They were in the higher echelons of the church, unfortunately, but there was a Good Samaritan. And as Caymanians, we've done many, many Good Samaritans act, and the Nation Building Fund is just another manifestation of the Good Samaritan mentality that we as Caymanians have. I also want to refer to the Nation Building Fund. Although 10 churches were given, there were 2 churches, for whatever reason, came under hell and brimstone and all sorts of attack. But again, if I can refer to the good book, that no weapon that is formed against us and no tongue that rises up in condemnation shall not be properly defended by our Commander-in-Chief, and that is the heritage of the Christian, which we strive on. This first letter I want to read was received by myself from the pastor Audley Scott, who is the pastor of the Hillside Baptist Church in Cayman Brac. And with your kind indulgence, I read as follows. It says, "Dear Miss Julie, I really did not get to say a proper thank you for the funds for the church. However, please allow me to say that I am most grateful for your efforts for the funds that we so badly needed to complete the work on the church. Suffice to say, like the Red Bear Church, we at Hillside are being criticized through the media and on the street. I called an emergency meeting last night, which was not last night, but the night before, which is probably a week or so ago, to discuss the issue. And the result was that we should return the money to the government through your offices. Julie, our need is great, but the God you and I serve is greater, and he will supply our need. We, the church, feel that it is not worth your good name and office, the church and my name, being the pastor's name, being dragged through the mud. I was asked that you be brief of the outcome of that meeting and not just coldly return the funds. Miss Julie, personally, I will be ever grateful to you for all your efforts and kindness shown to me and the church. Hold fast to your faith. Greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. May God bless you and keep you in his service. Audley Scott, pastor. I am also made to understand that the Red Bay Church of God, Holiness, which came perhaps under the most fire, they had 2 members meeting that I'm aware of, and they've also come to the same conclusion that because they were not prepared for our church to be dragged through the disgraceful attacks that were pointed towards them, and in the interest of my own name as a member and as a minister in government, although the need still remains for the ban for the over $8,000 that the former premier gave them, which our ministers have also concurred with, and $100,000 for the roof repair and the parking repair, that they too will be returning both checks. And we've started to take pledges within our church. Unfortunately, we're a small church. It's difficult times. To date, they've only been able to receive pledges of approximately $8,000 towards the ban, which was an immediate need for the Red Bay Gospel Band, and they're known throughout the islands for doing many, many things. Even as we speak, there's a festival going on at our church now, and we don't charge for those things. We have not received any pledges yet for the repair of our roof, so as we enter this rainy season, water will still be coming in. We have to slip our piano, we have to slip our hymn books and all of those things. So we still felt that although we believe that the former premier exercised the correct process and that we were only one of the 10 recipients, that because of the spin and the attitude that a majority have taken, they did not want the church, and neither did they want me as a member or as a minister or premier of government to be accused wrongly. So we have decided to give it back to government, and we're dependent on the Lord and good citizens of the community to come to the aid of churches. I still want to say that I make no apologies for assisting churches, because Cayman is a Christian community. And I've always been taught that when you come to Rome, you do as the Romans do. And we should not allow persons who do not believe in God, whatever your religion is, be the defining persons in our community. And I just want to repeat for emphasis that when we lose the fear of the Lord, there are no boundaries. And make no mistake that what transpired within the past 2 weeks, although it made the media perhaps more significant as far as people hitting it, it might have made Cayman Wireless and digital have more BBMs and social networks. One thing it did for our church at Red Bay, it upped the attendance on Thursday nights when we rarely get people. Everybody's curiosity was up. The other thing it did, it has begun a healing process in our church where some factors were in support of a particular party, and we understand those were the ones who went to the media. We recognize that the problem is not the media in this instance. It's internal to the church where, as I said at a former speech this morning, the ear cannot operate without the hand cannot operate without the feet. We're all one body together. And if one part hurts, all of us should be hurting. There have been open confessions in the church from the board member who went to a politician who's a candidate, I beg your pardon, Chris Saunders, who's now running for Bodden Town. Chris Saunders has written a letter of apology, which has been written out in our church, but because we believe that those things are internal to the church itself, I chose not to read Chris Saunders' email, and I chose not to say who that board member was, but suffice to say, he has made a very broken apology to me and to the entire church. It is unfortunate, but what the devil meant for bad, it has started a revival in our church. And if it took this check to do it, then it's worth it. I thank you for giving me this time to explain it. I trust it will be the end of it, but if not, I'm open to whatever questions that may emanate from the press or private persons thereafter. I thank you, Deputy.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all, and a special good morning to the essay competition finalists and all who are involved with this most impressive initiative. I think I've been to these finals. This will be my fourth time, and every year it's always quite a treat to hear how young people, through their own minds and their own eyes, see their Cayman. As we know, these types of competitions not only are positive for learning, but they're also positive for ensuring that young people in our community continue to focus on the uniqueness of the Cayman Islands and the uniqueness of us as a people. I think sometimes we get lost in the fact that we do have a unique style of living, a lifestyle, and a unique island. Whilst technology is making the world quite flat, Cayman does have that uniqueness left, and I am certainly looking forward to today, just a little later, getting to share this with Rotary and be there with all of you. So on behalf of government, certainly want to congratulate all of you as finalists and congratulate Rotary Club and all who have been involved in this most outstanding initiative. I also want to put on record my thanks for the Chief Officer in our ministry, Mrs. Kimberly Colonel, and our entire team for a very successful opening of the Clifton Hunter High School last week. For those of you who were able to make it, I'm sure you will have been most impressed with our students. Our students led all the tours, and there were numerous performances by our students last Thursday evening. We had several hundred people come out, and it was certainly a most impressive occasion as we celebrated the end of a long and arduous and very rocky at times journey. But it's always good to be able to get into our buildings. I want to cover a couple of things surrounding the school that has been raised in the press recently. Government took a decision, and I announced this back in October of last year, that the facilities at Clifton Hunter High School were not going to be available to the public until later in the school year, because we had to do a number of things. Firstly, you have to work out the kinks in the building. You have to go in and live and breathe and be in the building. And the government had to see what the actual operating costs of the building would be to ensure that we would have a proper fee structure in place. In the times in which we live, those facilities are quite large and quite extensive and very expensive to run. And it's no way that government is going to be able to be in a position to be able to, on a regular basis at least, have those facilities simply opened up and not have some sort of fee to recover at least a part of those costs. As was reported in the press a few months ago also, there was a leak in the chill water plant. And again, that's just testament to the wisdom of the decision that we took. You just have to get into these facilities and really get them up and running for a period of time before you're going to go and open them up to the public. We solved that problem several weeks ago, and certainly from everything that's been reported to me, everything else in terms of the running of the school has been smooth. And so I'm happy to say that we're getting close to the point that we are going to be able to put in place our charge schedule, our security and usage detail, because those are other things that also have to be carefully managed. As you can imagine, with a facility that has multiple buildings and is on several acres of land, when it comes to opening it for use, we have to be most careful at ensuring that the users, not necessarily those who organize a function, but those who come to those events and activities, are managed properly, I guess is the best way to put it, because we cannot afford to have any damage to those facilities. In regards to the actual running of the school, I think it's fair to say that last Thursday was yet another good example of the real positive work that is happening under the leadership of the new principal there and the senior management team. It was quite impressive to see them working once again, and in particular working in tandem with the PTA. And so I want to publicly also thank all of the staff and students at Clifton Hunter High School for hosting the community, and also to thank the PTA for their involvement in the opening of that facility. That's my report for the week.
Thank you, Deputy. Honorable Minister Glidden.
Thank you, Premier. Just want to also express my thanks again to the press and the listening audience, and extend my welcome as well to the students of the finalists of the Rotary essay competition, and wish you all good luck with the awards coming up after this. Just in general, want to continue on, I guess, with the update. We've been getting some questions because it appears to be quiet, even though I know I gave an update, I think, 2 weeks ago on the major projects, two of the major capital works projects that the country is in need of, being the port and the airport. While we haven't been having regular statements, I just wanted to, for the listening public who have questions or concerns, there seems to have been, myself and my colleagues, specifically in the District of West Bay, have been approached because they apparently hear that we're not moving forward at all with facilities, and just want it to be clear that the process is ongoing. We are moving forward. We have a structured team with the assistance of the UK that is following the necessary procurement and preparing the process that will allow a competitive tendering process to be done. And so the bid package is basically, which will include or require business plans, engineering and architectural plans to complete that package. So that work is ongoing. So just because we haven't been having those discussions, no one should get concerned that we've moved away. The country has accepted that we have to move forward with the development. It's just a matter of making sure the correct process is followed. The same is with the airport. The airport board and with their consultants are moving through the process to ensure that we have an acceptable plan that would meet the acceptance of the United Kingdom, basically from a procurement standpoint. The other discussion that has been quite topical, I guess, is the one with operator licenses for bus drivers. You can say that the legislation, again, taking into account the needs that have been identified or shortcomings that have been identified in terms of costs and regards to the test, an interim period for Caymanians to be allowed to drive while they're getting regularized, and also to ensure that the method of testing is appropriate for the special needs of the individual. And for that, we are talking about issues like some of the drivers who have some autism needs. We had some, or the operators, some of the drivers who had who needed for other reasons to take oral examinations. And so we're proposing legislation amendments which would allow for those changes to be made. and we've given drafting instructions for that to be done. And as soon as we've completed, we will again update that that's actually in place. So, just briefly wanted to update on those specific areas of my ministry, and we look forward to questions, which we're sure will be forthcoming from the press.
Thanks, Minister. I now call on Minister Seymour to bring his weekly report.
Thank you, Madam Premier. Again, I want to express my thanks to chaperones Ms. Smith and Mr. Locloy for bringing the essay finalists, and I wish everyone well. And definitely, I want to discuss this morning, just to make it known to the public, what we've been working on in terms of the Siemens ex gratia payment. That has been extended, and I just want to make it clear that no one will be taken off the program unless they're deceased. And so just for the calm and comfort of those who haven't seemed to got in their information to the department, that that they can still contact 244-2424 and speak to the secretary there, and she can instruct them further what they need to do to complete these forms that were sent out to them, or if they have any difficulty in, or if they haven't received this packet or information, they can call this number, and she will direct them what to do. So just to make it clear, no one will be taken off the program, and unless they're deceased. And just to add to what the Premier was saying earlier about the in regards to the churches, I was happy to have had the church in my life growing up and benefiting from many areas that benefited my life and creating the person that I am, in terms of the Boys Brigade, which helped me immensely, the marching band that I was a part of, the youth choir, also enabling me to take my first trip off the island with a youth group. At 15 years old, my first trip leaving the island was afforded by the church, helping to mold the young man that I am today. I'm forever grateful to persons like, I'm sure they don't mind me calling their name. It's a lot to mention, but I'll mention a few. Reverend Magoo, who made sure that I stayed straight. Miss Francine, Miss Hazeldine, Miss Kay, Miss Alma, many. Some are deceased now, but I'm sure they'll be proud of me. But I just want to say that the church definitely did a lot to improve my life. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move into our Q&A section, and we will now entertain likewise.
Morning,
Morning,
cabinet
Chair.
members. Madam Premier, you mentioned with the Red Bay Church, you mentioned the specific name of a candidate, but you won't mention the name of the committee member. I'm just wondering why, frankly. Because you mentioned one, but not the other.
Because as I understand it, I didn't hear him, but as it evolved, the politician-to-be from the district of Bordentown went public with his comments. The board member, as far as I'm aware, made his open confession within a church members' meeting.
Just making sure. Just want to make sure that everybody sees that it's equitable and fair, that
Yeah.
the naming of names.
And obviously, it's up to that board member if he wishes to go more public with his confession. That's totally within his discretion.
Minister Glidden, sir, with laying the groundwork for making sure procurements are done in the proper fashion, does that mean that this government is actually going ahead with trying to get a procurement or get a bid from someone at this particular time, or are you going to wait until the next elections and go on to that aspect from there?
We would love if we would have been able to reach, but to reach a point where we were able to actually go out for bids. But obviously with a open and transparent process that meets best practice, accepted best practice. The timing doesn't allow us, Jay, to be able to actually deliver that. So what we were able to deliver is a defined process that says we're going to go out, we're going to do a competitive bid for a business case. So a company to provide a business plan, which is the stage they're at now. So the strategic business plan, because with the discussions with the UK, one of the things that have become obvious is that while we all recognize the need for their birthing facilities, we've moved forward on that understanding, but we don't have actual documented evidence to say this is the business model that supports this decision. And so while we've had plans being made, the concern, specifically the concern of the UK, was that the plans and the progress that have been made so far had been driven by the developer and could very much end up being done for the benefit of the developer. So what we agreed is that we would start over. We would do a business model. We expect the end result to be the same, but it will now have as a foundation the business plan, and to decide who will do the business plan. Again, following best practice, we have to do a procurement for the entity because we have many entities on the island that could do that. So that's the stage that we're at. And then there's a model to say from the business plan, we'll then go through a procurement process for who will do the engineering and architectural plans. And then, depending on what the decision is of the committee as to whether to do actually to include as a part of the bid package an environmental impact assessment, or whether the environmental impact assessment will be done beforehand as well, right? Will then determine the next stage. And the difference in this proposal will mean that for this procurement to occur, instead of the government going out to someone and asking for a design, finance, and build, which creates an issue for the Central Tenders Committee to ensure that they're comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges in terms of value for money. This will mean that we actually have prepared a bid process that will allow interested parties to be bidding all on the same plan, which will ensure that we're able to do a comparative at that stage. So the process is moving along. Those are the very broad-based stages that need to be completed. And what we've been able to do, and we've kept the other members of the Legislative Assembly, even the members of the opposition, involved in that process, that regardless of what happens after May the 22nd, regardless of who is there, that process, and it's not being driven by the politicians, it's been driven by the civil servants at this stage. It's chaired by my chief officer. And so to allow continuity after the election so that we don't have to start over, that process should be able to be continued. So we're fulfilling our part between now and May, with the hope that after that, it'll be a smooth process continuing on. And we have the commitment from the UK that once that process is followed, it has their blessings and support, and hopefully we will be able to deliver a pair based on that model that is being used.
Just a quick follow to that. We've seen government business plans go drastically wrong. Just the example of the Bosun's Beach turtle farm issue. How do we make sure we get it right this time with a business plan and make sure it's followed properly?
Sure. Well, from the business plan for this, I mean, what we still have to have a business plan, and all of that will be determining the RFP process. But we still expect the difference, I guess, if we use the Bosun Beach, government did a business plan and then government went out to borrow money to do that. What we're going to have at this stage is we'll have the business plan driving the process, but the interested parties are going to still have to bid and decide that from a financial standpoint that they're willing to accept that risk, and that when they do their evaluation that it makes business sense for them to do. So obviously if we go forward a business plan and we put it out for tender, remember this is going to be privately financed. And so if no entity is willing to step up to take that risk, that's a pretty good indication that we don't have a sound business plan.
Hi, Patrick Brindell with the Cayman Compass. This question is for the Premier. Ms. O'Connor-Connolly, when you were talking about the churches receiving nation-building funds, I got the impression that you were saying there was some wrongdoing being done in how those funds were disclosed. So was it wrong for somebody to disclose who received the nation-building funds from the government?
No, I'm not quite sure how you made that quantum leap. And if I did speak that it wasn't clear enough, I apologize. But basically what I was elucidating thereon was that we recognize within the church that the weakness was within the church in itself. If in fact the report was correct, and I have no reason not to believe what Ms. Winda said, that there were members of the church who contacted her and the innuations that were given that it was given for political reasons. We felt within the churches that if members in the church had difficulty with it, it should have been voiced when the application was made to the former premier and not wait until the funds were delivered to the church.
Thank you for the clarification. I have a question for Minister Seymour. In your opinion, what are the 5 most important issues facing Bordentown today?
Thank you for that question. Definitely, Bordentown is a district that first capital, fastest growing district, and we need to ensure that we create employment opportunities. There's a lot of people unemployed in Bordentown, a lot of young people unemployed. We need to ensure we create entrepreneurial opportunities within the district of Bordentown. We need to continue to progress in creating an enhanced community and the quality of life, continuing with our parks and some of our other plans with a boxing gym and a swimming pool, creating a total sports center at the Civic Center, retooling or unemployed, trying to fit them in other areas of employment. That is really a big one. Ensuring the quality of life for our elderly is improved, increasing our hurricane shelter capacity, which as the fastest growing district, we have the least capacity, and monitoring our growth and the needs for an additional primary school. There's been significant growth in the amount of students that are attending the Savannah Primary and the Bordentown Primary. Additionally, creating a cultural village depicting Bordentown as the first capital, and trying to spruce up the area throughout the old Bordentown. Continuing to do great work in Bordentown that we have started, better than any other elected member in over 30 years. Mark and myself were able to Minister Scotland, were able to achieve many stuff. Continuing to work with the developers of 2 hotels for Bordentown, which could employ some hundreds of persons in the district of Bordentown, and the list continues. We have been very effective elected members for Bordentown, and we want to continue to make Bordentown a place that we can live, work, and play. And definitely, when you elect Mark Scotland and Dwayne John Seymour, we're not persons that you need to hit the ground running. We will continue running on the ground. Thank you.
As you can see, the minister is in campaign mode and is very enthusiastic about his district of Bordentown. Came very prepared for the question, and he's a very young minister in the fact that he's only been there a few months. Being a minister in his first term, if I may speak for him, was not on his radar. But I'm very proud to have him as minister, and he has many miles to go.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Wendy from Cayman News Service. Apologies for my late arrival. I had to be in 2 places at once, which is not always easy,
We
as I am
understand the
only
feeling.
human. Although, so forgive me if this is a repetition, Premier, but I wanted to just clarify the situation with the Red Bay Church. Has there been any decision about returning the cheque, especially in light of what happened in Cayman Brac? And a related question, which has come up as a result of the nation building funding being in the spotlight again. Money was set aside for the Christian Heritage Park, where the old government building used to be, the car park behind the... What's happening with that project, and what's happened to that money?
No, let me answer first, Wendy. Yes, I did say it, but I don't mind repeating it again. At least 2 meetings, possibly 3, but 2 that I'm aware of, were held at the Red Bay Church of God Holiness. I believe one was held at Brother Pastor Audley's church. The decisions was almost the same, they both voted to return the funds, and I read Mr. Audley's letter. I understand there's a letter that's going to be coming from Red Bay to the office of the Premier. I'm not yet in receipt of it, but their checks will be returned to the government, and it's on the basis, not that they don't need it, because they're both specifying you can visit to see the need is still there, but they felt that they did not want the church nor my name to be dragged through the mud, regardless of the motive and their motives, and they will go on. Certainly the Red Bay Church have begun in pledging within the membership, and is open to any other member in the private sector who still believe that churches are a very vital and significant part of nation building to assist. And that was basically the clarification that I gave. Oh, yes. The former Premier and his colleagues, which were us and the rest that's now with his UDT team, made a decision in the budget exercise towards the beginning of summer last year, towards the end of the financial term, that was going to be a project he was not going to put in the budget for 2013. As far as funding is concerned.
Yes, sorry. So clarification is that was money not put in the budget for it the year before? That's the point. So what's happened to that money and what's happening to the project itself?
Okay, well, normally what...
Is it cancelled or is it just deferred? That's kind of what I'm getting at. And what happened to the earlier funds?
What normally happens, Wendy, is when the budget is done, if those funds are not expended by the end of the financial year, being the 30th of June, those monies will go back into central government and the whole budget process recommences again. Certainly, the five of us, being a holding government, have not begun any exercise into the budget for 2013, 2014. That will be the mandate of the next government. So the next government will then decide whether that is still a priority, and if so, how much funding will be done, keeping in mind that is if under the framework of fiscal arrangement with the UK and the FCO, there is already a 3-year plan, so it would have to keep within those parameters from a financial perspective. Perhaps the deputy may want to augment that statement.
Yes, and Wendy, let's be clear about this and any other projects that might not hit the public eye as much as that one. What would have happened is that project, if I remember, got put in the budget 2 times. Okay, and so let's be very careful when we talk about funds and funded. You're not funded until you have the monies to spend. And so the main reason it was taken out of the budget was when we looked at the cash position of CIG, the decision was taken, we simply did not have the cash to be able to afford that project at that time. It wasn't a lack of desire to continue on and create that park. We thought that park would have been a useful addition to Central Georgetown, which is rapidly becoming a concrete jungle with very little green spaces. But it was an affordability issue. Both times it was put in, both of those years. Once we got into the fiscal year, we just didn't see where we could have afforded it. And then this year, as the Premier said, it simply wasn't put in. A new administration is going to have to make a decision about what to do with that very valuable piece of government property.
This question related to Christian Heritage Park. There was money, at least records I have from the Nation Building Fund, show money was spent for some drawings and then also for to the American Bronze Foundry. What did that purchase, and if it was an item, where are those items now? Because I know some of the plans for it called for bronze busts of national heroes, for example.
I would have to ask my chief of staff, who is currently in London for some other duties, because it wasn't a budget for this year. Obviously, I did make it a priority in considerations. I basically spent my time on doing the things that monies were in the budget for this 5-year term. So I'm more than happy. Either you can let me follow on this question, or if you had more ancillary questions, you can direct it to Chief of Staff, Mr. Leonard Dilbert, in the Office of the Premier.
Thanks. And that would have been spent obviously before you were Premier. So
Yes.
And then this is a follow up to Mr. Seymour's statements on Bodentown. What is the, I guess, with hurricane season on the horizon, what is the status as far as hurricane shelters for people in that district? Will the Church of God's facility be ready by then, or is there an alternative location?
If I could be so presumptuous to come in here before my
Yes.
ministerial colleague answer, we do believe in a miracle working God, but I passed Bordentown last night, and it's almost in concurrent of a local joke that we have where the tourists pass the LA building, and let me retract it, where the tourists pass another edifice in town, and a local taxi driver said, oh, we do it much quicker and bigger and faster in Texas. And then he passed another building in town and he made the same proclamation. And then by this time, the Caymanian gene started to be more conspicuous and his patient tolerance began to decline. He passed a legislative assembly and he said, when was this building started? He said, I'll tell you what, I passed there last night and it's now finished this morning. So unless we have that type of modus operandi for what I saw in Banton, I do not have any legitimate expectation that it will be completed by this hurricane season. But I'll leave my good friend from Bordentown to respond to the rest of your question.
Thank you. I think hurricane season starts June the 1st, which is just almost a month away or something. And definitely won't be finished by then. But the only space at this time that I know about is the Savannah Primary School and the Bordentown Primary School, which is not adequate at all.
Can I just add to that point though? Because I think one of the things that we have to be very careful, and this debate I've heard since I was a little boy, and certainly it continues to rage. I think what's of interest is that we have had no occurrence that I know of in Cayman where a potential storm was coming and people got turned away and said we don't have spaces. The vast majority of people have no desire, unless government issues an evacuation order, to go into hurricane shelters. Our building code, and this is one of the real good success stories about Cayman, we have a very robust building code. And some people complained about it when it was first implemented, but I certainly can say that I think history has proven that it was a wise step for us to have such a robust building code. The vast majority of people have well-built homes, and they stay in those well-built homes, and they ride out storm after storm in those well-built homes. An overreaction by government to continue to expend monies in facilities that may or may not be used is not necessarily the best use of public resources. Hence the reason, for a number of years now, consecutive governments have sought to partner with agencies such as churches, that government would do principally do one thing. If a church either had an existing hurricane shelter, pay to bring it up to hurricane standard so it could be designated as a hurricane shelter, or if a church was going to build a church hall, that government would contribute the additional monies that would take it from the original plan of the church to hurricane standard, so that at least you had a building that was being used year-round, maintained year-round by an organization other than government, and then you have the access to those spaces during a hurricane threat, should the public want to go to those facilities. I think that should continue to be the model that we utilize. CIG simply is not going to have the resources to continue to go out and build building after building after building and say, oh, let's designate this a hurricane shelter, and it wind up being a building that isn't necessarily used a whole lot, and you look at it and you actually try to cost it out, and you realize that after a decade, you look at the utilization, you don't have really good value for money in terms of the public monies we've expended. So I don't think that we ought to really go back around this mulberry bush that we seem to always want to beat down about how many hurricane spaces government are building. I think the key is, and to your question about that particular facility, which is one of those examples of that partnership where government is partnering with another agency, that really ought to be the model that we continue to follow.
Thank you very much. Just changing the subject a little bit, the usual question, the PwC report, is there any sign of that, the value for money report? And also, just to catch up on the the report on the budget, which we were sort of expecting perhaps this week. And actually, I've seen Mr. Bush here. I wonder, could you confirm and let us know what the situation is with the nationwide CCTV project and whether that's online and where we're at with that and when it's coming online? That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thanks, Wendy. The report, that was a matter that was discussed in Cabinet on Tuesday past, and without giving you the details of what obviously happened in Cabinet, I'll just give you this summary. There needed to be some legal clarification based on the legislation who actually had to sign the report. A position had been taken, and once legal clarification was sought and given, a position is now firm, and it is anticipated that the report would be issued on this coming Tuesday. The other one, I believe, was in respect of the independent report. The last information I got from my technical staff was that word received from the preparers of the report was that we could expect to be in receipt of it on the 20th of this month. That's all that I can report on. The 20th was what my technical staff told me when I asked them this week. I can say that the cabinet paper for the amendment to the third agreement with for Cayman Alliance and government has been prepared, and is anticipated that that will be before cabinet on Monday, if a special cabinet is called, the latest Tuesday.
Do you expect the entire, this follow-up to Wendy's question, do you expect the entire For Cayman Investment Alliance agreement to be finalized before the election?
No, I don't expect it. And I believe that the legitimate expectation would see the conclusion of the in-area agreement, as it's commonly referred to. I think the full agreement will fall within the ambit of the new government. They then can make a decision whether they want to continue it and provide the public with reasons why or why not. Mr. Bush, I don't think that was your expectation, but as a transparent civil servant, as I know you to be, I'm sure you're always ready with an appropriate answer.
Yes, Madam Premier. Just the reason I'm here is as a past president of the Rotary Club of Grand Cayman, just assisting with the chaperoning of the finalists, but always happy to answer a question within my remit. The National CCTV project, Phase 1, has been completed with the successful installation and operation of 226 cameras throughout the 5 districts of Grand Cayman. Again, just to reiterate the technology, the 226 cameras include fixed cameras, pan tilt zoom, and ANPR cameras, or automatic number plate recognition cameras, throughout the 5 districts. It has been commissioned and it is in use. The feedback that I've received from the police, in particular the commissioner, is that it's invaluable, and they continue to use it as a law enforcement tool to gather information and or evidence for reported crime. It's been switched on for over a year, but the actual commissioning happened a few months ago because there was, just some with that vast amount of technology. The CCTV committee wanted to ensure all of the items on the punch list were sorted out and fixed before the actual handover was taking place. But it was in use and used by law enforcement several months prior to the actual commissioning.
Mr. Glidden, just on the campaign trail, many of the politicians, wannabes, have been saying that we should pedestrianize downtown Georgetown for the cruise ship experience. Just what does the tourism ministry feel about that in today's day? And do you feel there would be backlash of closing a main road with a beautiful view of the sea, similar to what is taking place in West Bay?
Good question.
Yeah, I mean that's a difficult one. I think for some time there has been a discussion or a desire in terms of pedestrianizing, having some open air cafes and to improve the whole ambience of Georgetown, especially on days that we have heavy cruise ships. Obviously, we've had some discussion with the NRA, and the challenge has always been trying to do that in a way without disrupting the normal flow of traffic and the movement of people who aren't just here to enjoy our beautiful island, but actually have to work and have their being here. And so we haven't been able to find a balance that would allow for that. Specifically speaking, one of the challenges that either on a permanent or even on a temporary basis creates a challenge to achieving that goal is actually the movement of cargo, because it's not just a cruise ship facility, but it's a cargo facility. But we can say to you that there has been those indications, the ideas of creating more market style arrangements to allow the locals to be able to have more access in a different type of setting. And we look forward to, with the enhancements of the cruise facility, especially when we have berthing, and hopefully we have guests that will stay later into the evening, that there will be the ability to at least create some more pedestrian friendly activities in the center of Georgetown. Picking up on the point, we're moving forward. We think that not only the center of Georgetown, but even the very highly tourism populated areas of West Bay Road. We've spoken before about the desire to make that more pedestrian friendly, to move away from the risk associated in some of the accidents that have occurred. And now with the development and continued opening of the second or the arterial road to West Bay, we're actively pursuing creating and making that more pedestrian friendly in terms of reducing the speed limit, putting more crossings, and trying to make it a safer overall experience for our tourists. Like I said, we know of some of the incidents that have occurred. We recognize the value of tourism and the need to try to be as accommodating as possible, while striking the balance of not inconveniencing the people that live and work in Cayman.
If anybody else would like to ask a question, we're open for that as well. But Mr. Seymour, just about the ex gratia payments again, you mentioned that the only way the funds would be taken away if someone's passed away. Obviously, that's just the one person, because I believe some of those benefits pass on to spouses or siblings or family members, if that's correct. Could you clarify that, please?
Spouses, yes.
Spouses only?
If there are no more questions at this time, I want to obviously thank you, but before I hand it over to Chalo, I think that great effort was made to bring these young ladies and gentlemen here this morning. Perhaps if we could pass the mic to them just to introduce yourself to the wider Cayman, to let them know who you are, so that when they see you, they can also offer you a hand of congratulations and thank your chaperones as well. You can go ahead, please.
I'm Zinzan Graham from CIS.
I'm Dorothy Ohario from Cayman Pratt.
I'm Afia Anibule from St. Ignatius.
I'm Starry Smith from Clifton Hunter.
I'm Kevin Weber from Grace Christian Academy.
I'm Joanna Tibbetts from Lehman E. Scott Senior High School.
And your chaperones, I know, but maybe the rest of Cayman needs a gentle reminder.
Jennifer Smith, Rotarian.
Deanna Lookloy, Rotarian.
Thank you ever so much. And of course, we have Eric Bush and Deborah here, also lending their support. And we, as a government, want to thank Rotary and Tristica, sorry. I want to thank Rotary and all the other clubs that do so much, the NGOs that do so much to assist government as we partner in this nation building exercise.